My relationship with Trigger has always been a weird one. While I love the series that a lot of people seem to dislike, I also don't really have fondness for series like Kill la Kill that a lot of people are, deem as being one of the greatest anime of all time. But at least we can all come to a common ground that Little Witch Academia, the original, was absolutely fantastic. At the same time, I'm not a huge fan of Gridman. Not that I don't like Gridman, I love kaiju fights, I think it's absolutely amazing, but at the same time, I'm not really deep into the lore of Gridman and all the things that it has to be with it. And still, even then, when I jumped into SSSS Gridman a couple years back, I absolutely love the series. I thought it was fantastic, and Trigger's take on it was great. I love the kind of things they did with the actual kaiju themselves, did with some of the characters. It was fantastic. The art style was great. The directing was fantastic. And so, naturally, when Dynazenon popped up, I immediately jumped back into it because this is supposed to be within the Gridman universe, within their original Gridman universe. So now with the series wrapped up with its 12 episodes, I am here to give my full review on the series, so let's jump into it. Dynazenon follows a boy named Yomogi who, while he's walking home from school, hears some gossip about a girl named Yume, who apparently asked boys to go to a certain location to talk to them, and then stands them up. I guess kind of like they think that they're being confessed to, and then she just, for some reason, doesn't show up. And at some point, this particular girl ends up asking the same of him. And so he's like, okay, sure, I'll meet you there and we'll see each other. In the middle of this time, he meets a guy named Goma underneath a bridge who is seemingly a shady-looking guy who is starving, and Yomogi gives him something to eat. And this guy, proclaims, you're my, you saved my life. I'm going to repay you somehow. And he's like, just leave me alone. Later on, when he goes to meet this Yume girl at this particular location, of course, she doesn't show up, and she's on a bridge nearby. And this Goma guy that he met and saved his life ends up finding her and confronting her and asking why she did this. And then at the same time, a kaiju appears and starts wrecking the city. And Goma ends up having this thing in his possession, this Dynazenon statue, that ends up turning into Dynazenon, which is this huge mecha robot. And Yume, along with Yomogi, Goma, and two other people, Koyomi and Chisei, end up all getting inside of this gigantic mecha robot, and they go out and they fight the kaiju. And they thus become this team of kind of anti-kaiju people working under Goma, who essentially we find out later on has some kind of tie to the people that are using these kaiju to attack the city. In a sense, each one of these people that get dragged into this Dynazenon all end up having to carry with them a piece of the Dynazenon. One having the legs, one having the body, one having the arms, and so on and so forth. And them together, when they all combine, it becomes this Dynazenon. Later on, we meet the Kaiju Eugenicists, as they call themselves. These are these people that have the ability to control the kaiju, and each one of them seem to have a reason why they're all together wanting to control the kaiju and essentially wipe humankind off the face of the map. Or it seems like they're trying to make a place for kaiju, which essentially is take out all humans. And their connection to Gama ends up being revealed, and again, it kind of continues this cycle of the kaiju showing up, the eugenicists controlling them, and the anti-kaiju team, so to speak, coming together, creating the Dynazenon, and fighting them off. And then sprinkled throughout this, you kind of get a little bit more insights into each one of these characters and their kind of insecurities and things that they're facing. Like Yume is having an issue, kind of trying to reveal the truth of why her sister had passed away, seemingly in an accident. Gama and his history with the kaiju eugenicists. Koyomi and this kind of failed ex-love that he had, and kind of his deadbeat nature where he has no job or anything. And then, of course, Chisei, who is kind of having struggles with going to school because she was kind of seemingly isolated when she was in school. So what I think of the series, I, of course, came into the series with high expectations. I absolutely loved the SSSS Gridman series. It was fantastic. The artwork was great. The animation, the directing, again, the story, the kind of twists and turns they put to the kaiju and the characters themselves. It was a fantastic series, and I loved it to death. And maybe it was that high expectation that may have led to me being ultimately disappointed in Dynazenon, but still, even then, I was entertained by this series. I think just by the directing and the artwork and the animation and everything they put into the series itself was probably enough just to keep me entertained enough that I did enjoy this series. But at the same time, my disappointment does come in the fact that it didn't do enough. It didn't really play off enough of my expectations to give me anything that really blew me away. And I think a lot of that really centers around Yume, unfortunately. While I do love her character design, I thought that she's really cute. I love her really kind of quiet nature. And the fact that they play off of her and Yomigi's almost quiet nature is really hilarious. There's like these awkward scenes where the two of them are left alone and you just have this long pause of them just not talking, because both of them really do have problems with socializing in the end, or at least him socializing with her and her just socializing in general. But ultimately, like I said, they spent way too much time on Yume. As much as I do like her story was about her sister and her trying to uncover the truth about her sister. And there's two issues with this. One, they spent pretty much the entire series banking on it over and over again, slowly trying to unravel little bits and pieces of it, and to, unfortunately, a very anticlimactic end to it. I thought with how much emphasis they were putting on it, it was going to have some crazy thing with it, but it just was like, that's it? Okay. And I think that's probably my biggest issue with the series, is just how much time they spent on this and how much emphasis they put on this, and it being very lackluster in the end. I was very much so begging them to finally just put an end to it, and then thankfully the next episode they did, and it was, like I said, very anticlimactic. And that really is, unfortunately, a case with all the stories. I mean, technically Koyomi had something behind his background. It wasn't much. Chise had a backstory to her. It was covered within a couple minutes, and nothing really happened from it. And Yomogi himself is very, very, very plain. He had very little to do with the story itself. I mean, there was something they were trying to pull him into, a concept they were pulling him into at the very end, but him as a character was very blank. It was so funny. There was an episode where every character had to face something in their past, and it almost felt like the writers were making fun of Yomogi and the idea that his past segment was mere seconds, and it was the most uneventful aspect of his entire life and was nothing to it. Even still, I did like some of the playoff they were making on the Gridman universe. Again, I'm not very knowledgeable on it, so I end up having to look up a lot of it, and I did like the kind of connections they were making. Now, to a Gridman fan, it might be heresy or it might be insulting what they did, but me knowing that there was some tie-ins there, I actually found it very interesting. Now, unfortunately, again, not much. They didn't play too much on it. It was very small segments of the overall story, but the reveals were interesting. And it, not only that, but it also makes me excited for what they could do in the future. The tie-ins they did to Gridman was also excellent. Not Gridman, but Gridman, SSSS Gridman. The tie-ins they did with that was great. I had a huge smile on my face the moment I realized what tie-ins they had to the SSSS Gridman series and characters there. Was great. And that kind of couples in with the Eugenesis and their tie-ins with Goma, and Goma's tie-in to this 5,000 years prior that they get into. All that stuff I did find interesting, but at the same time, their existence within this entire 12 episodes was very minor. And most of that time was more spent around Yume, Yomogi basically chasing after Yume all the time, and then every now and then these really cool fights that are really well put together. Which begs the question, yes, why, Andrew, do you enjoy this series if you watched all of that and that was all a letdown? It was the expectation for something. And at the same time, being entertained by incredible directing, incredible character designs, great music, the presentation, the fights themselves were all fantastically done. Trigger did a really good job of kind of mixing both CGI and 2D in their combat sequences. And they actually did a lot better job than they did with the SSSS Gridman series. So you do see that improvement that they've had with their animation and animating these huge kaiju battles that they actually have. And it gets me excited for what we would expect is going to be Dynazenon X Gridman, which is coming up here soon, hopefully. So yeah, my overall thoughts, it was entertaining. I enjoyed it. The fights were great. The directing was fantastic. Just, again, spent way too much time on Yume's character. Didn't really have much significance to it in the end. And at the same time, a lot of the characters' backstories and what they did with them were very minor as well. So I loved all the tie-ins with the SSSS Gridman. I like the little insights into the Gridman universe itself that they've tried to tie into this series. And I am excited still for Dynazenon X Gridman when that eventually does come. Yeah, that's my thoughts on SSSS DYNAZENON. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of this series. If you did, please leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Let me know. Subscribe if you haven't already, and share this video if you can. I hope you all enjoyed, and y'all take care.